having the right technology decision-making sets you up for a lot of success. We often see a lot of governance and process being introduced. So when it comes to like error monitoring, logging, how are you tracking mistakes on the APIs and what might get overloaded and when? I think that's a really big consideration, which is obviously what a lot of you guys spend your time focusing on with your clients and supporting them for. And then I think that the last one is just having a really good buy-in within your technical organization, that you don't get caught up doing the things that the business team should do.
Welcome to the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives, a podcast by Noibu, where we explore the elite strategies and cutting-edge insights with our expert guests. Get ready to propel your e-commerce business to the next level.
Welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Toolbox Experts Perspective. Joining us today, we have Thomas. Thomas is from Orium. He heads up the sales and the go-to-market team, as well as collaborates very closely with MACH and all things MACH. So very excited to have you on the podcast today, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. What looks like a very beautiful Ottawa day for you.
It's actually pretty nice. Funny, I was in the UK last week and it was like beautiful, beautiful weather here. And it wasn't so nice when I was in Europe last week. So funny how that works out sometimes. But yeah, I'm super curious to learn a bit more about your career. I always like to learn. Obviously, you've been at VP from Orium. You've been there 5 years. You're on the growth council for MACH. You're an advisor for composable.com. Maybe talk to us a bit about your career journey and kind of how you ended up in your role today.
Yeah, I mean, if I take a step back, maybe before the Orium days, even back to before I moved to Canada, and I lived in Ireland, and I was expected to do the life job of accounting and finance, and I worked at PwC, and I used to log my time in 6-minute increments, and very quickly got to the conclusion that maybe advising on tax is not the thing I wanted to do for the next 40 years, and moved myself over to Canada and immediately found myself falling into the tech space. Originally working in fintech, so I spent a lot of time working with some of the larger banks in Canada across their digital journeys. And then that brought me to what was always kind of an urging thing, is getting closer to the work that gets done every day, and not so much living on the product side, but living more on that services aspect. So I joined an organization which at the time was called My Planet, and we later changed our name to Orium. And we were very specifically, when I joined the organization, focused on things like Drupal and custom development and custom experiences for customers. So I joined on January 20th, 2020, got told within my first week, we don't do Drupal anymore. We do Headless projects only. 2 weeks later, COVID hit. I then had to learn how to do headless experiences from my own bedroom and my working at home experience. And that, I guess, etched the path to, okay, this is a fight or flight moment in your career, and you've got to go figure out what is headless commerce, how do you sell headless commerce, and how do you help customers plan for projects around it. So that's been some of my journey to date. And then I've been super fortunate to be part of what was a very small sales and go-to-market team of 2 people when I joined. Is now a very sizable organization. We've now got over 300 people at the organization, and we just acquired a company down in Mexico as well. So LATAM is even a new market that we're brokering into.
That's amazing. And as I'm hearing you talk, it's really interesting because I think Orium's in a unique spot where you guys really get to kind of pick the best of breed technology. So what I'm really curious to learn about is what excites you the most about kind of picking the cutting edge technology and kind of sitting in the middle, where you're not necessarily building the technology, but you're putting together the kind of best of breed. But yeah, what kind of excites you in the current landscaping of commerce around that topic?
I think a big thing for me is how much Orium has matured over the last, let's say, 5 years of being part of the projects that we're delivering. So if I bring myself back to the very first project I worked on at Orium, it was actually a headless deployment of Magento back in 2020. And this was, for anyone that knows the Adobe space well, before PWA Kit existed, or before any of the best practices that Adobe have brought to the market really existed. And we ultimately tried to deploy the experience on our own frameworks. And we found out very quickly what a non-performant API can do for web performance and scalability in an architecture. So what really excites me about Orium is we've probably done everything wrong that you could do in the composable space at this point. And because we made a decision, which was a huge executive decision from Jason and the leadership team back in 2020, there was no word for this. It was actually coined in 2020 by Gartner of composable commerce. So we have done about every single thing wrong you can do in the space. And we have now matured a lot into understanding who are the best players in the space and what are the best strategies. And I think that's the bit that helps me wake up and get excited about work every day is we really do get to play around in the best solutions in the space. And what kind of proves that every single day is I'll probably get an email a week from a partner saying, hey, did you know we launched this new amazing thing for our customers? But when you've got a composable partner ecosystem of 40 plus people, that's a lot of innovation that's getting pushed into customer bases every single day. And we get to live and breathe that technology all the time.
Cool. No, I love hearing that. I definitely see that in kind of some of the projects that you guys are doing or in some of the articles on composable.com, because as you know, really momentum, it takes a long time to build up. And then when it builds, it really kind of takes off. So curious to learn a bit more about how your team's collaborating with the clients and how are you picking which solution is best for the clients? And how is it just from a rewarding standpoint on your side, being able to take unique challenges and build almost like a custom cocktail for each customer?
It's kind of a plus and a minus in terms of how some people look at it. They say, oh, well, the composable space is great. You can choose all the different variables and best of breed solutions. And then the procurement and the IT leadership team are like, great, I have to go buy all of these solutions all at one time. So we spend a lot of our practice within the services side, really consulting clients over what's really unique that you need to bring into the organization and what's less so unique, but still valuable. So we get to make those trade-offs all the time. And it's kind of fun putting the Jenga pieces together, the puzzle pieces together to figure out how do I think of cost? How do I think of customer value and what I'm delivering? And then how do I think of my internal teams, which is probably the hidden benefactor of a lot of the work that we do is you'll launch a better experience. It'll be more performant. It'll be accessible. It'll do the things that you couldn't do before. But when you look at the team internally, they get so much more. Like you can remove spreadsheets, you can build automations, you can have governance and workflows, all just out of the box capability. So we spend a lot of time thinking about there's the cost aspect, the employee aspect, and then the customer experience aspect, and then bring it all together. A really important thing about Orium's success is really around the topic of accelerators as well. So we have a very, very well-established accelerator that has over 15 different technologies integrated into it. And it offers you like a shopping list of all the different solutions, like 3 CMSs and different commerce solutions, different payment gateways. Delivers the same time to value, but you get to choose from a short list that have been pre-vetted, pre-integrated, and pre-built out for you. So we spend a lot of time deploying that experience specifically because the customer gets so much more value out of all the different components that way.
Could you maybe, for those that are listening that don't fully understand, maybe talk us through what an accelerator is and what's the kind of end value to a customer?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to describe an accelerator at Orium is the first ever website we built. It took us 4 months to build the basics. We built a CMS and all the content types. We built a front end. We built the buttons. We built the fonts. We built the style guides. We built every form factor we had to consider. As we got through a couple of projects, we realized, hey, this has to be faster. Why does every customer have to pay for the small pieces? And from there, we really built out, when you go headless, you don't have the head. We like to say, we've brought the head for you and we've deeply integrated it into all the solutions that you would have in your stack. The biggest significant value that you can really see is timeline. What used to take 3 months when we first did it, we then got it down to 8 weeks. And this year, with all of the wondrous AI capabilities that exist now, we can do this in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks after kicking off a project, you can have transactions going through your experience and your team get to see what the new normal is going to look like that quickly. So I feel like that's a really big point. And then that's when you get the promise of composable commerce. It's great. Let's build that really crazy thing that would help us stand out in the market and differentiate ourselves and drive better business results. And you get to focus on the customization pieces instead.
I love that. And I want to kind of pivot the conversation. So let's say that someone is on a monolithic solution and they're interested in composable commerce because they either have a unique business need or to yourself. It's e-com's really, really, really competitive. And Some websites are at 5% conversion and some websites are at 1%. And how do you drive your conversion up, right? That's something everyone's thinking about. What are some of the primary kind of technical considerations that people should think about when moving to more of a composable strategy versus being on a monolith?
I think a big aspect is whenever you're finding that there's a bottleneck in your organization that you can't achieve specific outcomes that you know would deliver results, that's a really good indicator that composable commerce can be a bigger need. And this can be small stuff. This might just be the content team saying, hey, it takes us 4 weeks to put a marketing campaign live. It can be big things like, hey, can we please build a clienteling experience for our stores so we can have the e-commerce purchases and be aware of what customers are buying online while they're in the store. So typically what we look for is have customers actually maxed out. You can call it monolithic, you can call it an all-in-one, you can even just call it a traditional e-commerce solution, but has a customer maxed out everything that has to offer? And you now need to start adding additional components to that tech stack to be able to achieve better and faster outcomes. So that's really where we start to focus on the customer experience limitations and the pains in the organization. And then we find modular components to add to your tech stack that are going to deliver better results faster.
Makes sense. Modular approach, more customization. How do you ensure companies transition to a composable strategy to drive conversion while maintaining kind of operational stability in the interim? So a lot of these are large projects and things like that.
I think a key aspect of here is, I guess, two things that we specifically drive for. And I probably sound like a broken record on this one, but you don't have to go big bang with a composable commerce deployment. So when we talk about, we're going to launch different composable components in your architecture, it doesn't have to mean you have to get rid of everything. Like I can use specific examples of, you're on Salesforce today. Did you know you don't have to re-platform your website to completely reinvent how you do content on the web? You can just buy a CMS. It's literally one extra tool in your organization that's going to deliver those results. So I think that's a really big aspect of not scaring the whole organization about a big bang strategy and a digital transformation, but finding the specific pain and then adding that resolution in. I think another really big one for us is adopting the MVP mindset and what is that incremental value that you're going to deliver week after week. One of our customers this year, his feedback, the CTO's feedback after we launched is, we can now launch features every 2 weeks. And getting into the details is really that they could not operate sprints because of the level of testing and instability that an all-in-one solution gave them. But the fact that this organization can write tickets on a board and have a dev team deploy a new feature to marketing every single 2 weeks is the difference between them being able to capitalize on more revenue opportunities to the business.
Love that. When companies go from monolith to composable, they're taking on more of the decision-making in-house or with partners like Orium. What are some of the strategies that they can deploy to avoid accruing technical debt in that org? Because now you're managing a technical asset. But if you look at and this is just my opinion now, but if you look at all the most valuable companies for the most part, in the S&P 500, a lot of them have proprietary technology. So to think that you can, effectively what's going to happen is you're going to start to build your own or not your own architecture, but your own kind of combination of tools that becomes your own proprietary asset. So obviously that's going to be very important in capturing value from your clients. But yeah, very curious as you start to do that, there's something new called tech debt. And how do you prevent that?
I think it's a common problem that exists in every organization. I think sometimes organizations do a good job at identifying tech debt and tackling it in a very consistent way. And some companies just don't know about it as well. I think a big practice is around choosing the right technologies for the right solutions. As I mentioned earlier, Orium have made every single mistake when it comes to delivering these composable commerce solutions. One of them is choosing the wrong solutions. So if you are buying a technology that maybe the sales cycle has been super fun, and maybe every time you asked something over a 6-week period, the answer is, yeah, sure, we can do that. Don't worry about it. That's a big issue that we see. So having the right technology decision-making sets you up for a lot of success. We often see a lot of governance and process being introduced. So when it comes to like error monitoring, logging, how are you tracking mistakes on the APIs and what might get overloaded and when. I think that's a really big consideration, which is obviously what a lot of you guys spend your time focusing on with your clients and supporting them for. And then I think that the last one is just having a really good buy-in within your technical organization, that you don't get caught up doing the things that the business team should do. Push IT away from things like content creation or changing the homepage or boosting and suppressing and merchandising on the search pages. That should be the tools that the business teams have. And then that allows your IT organization to really nail tech debt and avoid it as much as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. When we start looking at the types of solutions that you guys are building, balancing things like scalability and cost, I feel like a lot of people in 2020 and 2021 thought that their business were going to continue to double every year, and maybe they don't. What role does MACH architecture play in having flexibility without kind of compromising on performance, so that let's say that your traffic does actually double year over year, you can start to swap out the components? Like, how are you guys thinking about that?
I think that's a lot of the promise around the MACH principles. So within composable commerce, which you can call a buzzword number one in this topic, MACH is probably the second buzzword in terms of MACH being the principle of microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless. The beauty of a MACH solution is they're probably in the MACH Alliance, meaning they've been vetted, they've been certified, they've been checked for the quality of their technology solution. And then they deliver on the promise of, hey, we will always scale from a cloud native perspective. They don't have DevOps within their customer organizations to say, oh yeah, like you have to go ramp up servers in case Black Friday ends up being a big one. That is the promise of what these SaaS products are able to deliver on. And then I think another one is their API first. And that's a really big impact as it comes to innovation in the space and what more you can do in your business. A lot of the companies and customers that we work with have found really creative ways this year to pull data out of these solutions, play around with AI models and AI capabilities, and then push the data back in through either the same or different APIs, which really results in this buy versus build question. And it's not an ultimatum that you have to make. It's you're buying great solutions, MACH technologies, and then you're building new AI innovations. And you're kind of pulling data out, you're playing around with the AI, and then you're pushing it back into that same tech stack. And the beauty of it is it's going to deliver everything to the front end cloud native. So you don't ever have to worry about, hey, too many people are on my site at one time, and you hit those 7-second load times, which everyone fears.
That's great. And I hear you guys a lot in the market as well. There's Orium, MACH, those kind of seem to be in the same, like MACH Alliance at least, seem to always be in the same conversation. Do you maybe want to talk to us a bit about how Orium plays a role in the MACH Alliance? And obviously you guys have done a lot of the implementations. So how does that actually play into shaping the standards that kind of goes back into MACH? Like you mentioned, you guys have made some mistakes. Obviously you have a lot of successful projects. So maybe if you could let us know kind of a bit about that.
Yeah. So like I mentioned back in 2020, we decided as an organization, we were going to specifically focus on composable commerce or headless commerce. We were then one of the earliest MACH Alliance members in North America. So as MACH, which is traditionally European in terms of where it was sourced from, evolved over to North America, we joined that about as fast as we could in terms of, hey, this is what we're doing already, so we should probably jump into this. But it means we've really been able to hone in our practice around evolving into the best practices that we see. And it really means we can be a trusted advisor for customers as they evaluate these MACH solutions and what best practices are. But what's quite beneficial is we also get to influence a lot of the companies in the MACH Alliance for how they're delivering in a partner ecosystem. And you mentioned composable.com, which is a thought leadership site that we've built out from Orium's perspective. And we have a lot of thought leadership on that website that really guides how are brands doing this? What are the real life examples of success? What are things that people are looking for and exciting and innovating towards? And then we pull those insights and we actually bring it back into the MACH Alliance and wherever possible, make sure other people are able to adopt similar things. So we've got this kind of like circular factor of Orium's influence on the composable space, benefiting from this huge MACH alliance, which has over 100 members, and then this composable.com domain where we're able to write that content and make it evident for people of what's available there. And it has now expanded. It's got certifications. So, if somebody listening here wanted to go and learn about composable commerce, you can take a certification. You can actually get something registered after it to say that you've gone through the course. And you can say, great, like I can actually hold a very strong conversation in composable commerce now. We also open sourced the front-end library for anyone that wants to try building and any of the technical folks that want to try customize something or build it for themselves in their organization. There's a full front-end library that they can use themselves, and we've just offered it to anyone that wants it too.
Cool. That's great. And we talked a bit about the transition from monolith to composable. What are some of the kind of KPIs and thoughts you have post-launch and supporting post-launch as well?
So like I mentioned, a big factor is speed and how fast you can get to the market. But once you launch, that's really where the promise of composable is expected to deliver. And we have to hold the bar extremely high for that. So some of the things that we focus on with our customers is, are you actually able to incrementally deliver features to the business? Is every single 2 weeks, is your team deploying a net new feature that can capitalize on revenue opportunities? I think another one is empowerment of the business. So homepage management, promotions, checkouts, category strategies, all of that stuff should be taken away from the IT organization after you launch. So one of the biggest impacts that we've seen is actually within Harry Rosen. They've seen a 3x multiple on the velocity that their development teams could deliver within sprints after they launched a composable commerce strategy. And that might sound like a small thing, but a 3x delivery within IT means they actually had 3x the features being deployed month over month in their roadmap, which allowed them to accelerate their investments into digital coming out of COVID. So a lot of it's around how fast can you move? A lot of it's around how much can you enable the business teams? And then the last one for me is making sure that you can hold a really high bar for performance and scalability. So making sure that you're able to quickly fix features. You don't have to end-to-end test to get any changes done within your feature capabilities. And then also your performance, your accessibility, your different form factors. That stuff should be much, much easier to maintain within a headless experience.
Agreed. And especially when you look, and you mentioned kind of Harry Rosen by name, but when you look at a brand like Harry Rosen, they're selling primarily other people's clothing. Like you can get those on other websites. So what gives you the right to be able to earn that business? And it's providing kind of like an above and beyond digital experience. And like some of the cool things that they have is, some of the features like find your look and being able to really zoom in and upload images and stuff like that. So it's really cool. I think they've done a great job, and obviously by default, you guys as well. And it's really cool. And that's kind of why I wanted to go through with you today. I'm sure we could have stayed on for another 30, 40 minutes, but I really wanted to thank you, Thomas, for coming on. And you guys have done some really, really great work. And not only do we appreciate you guys as a partner, but as a thought leader in kind of the space as well. So thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, appreciate the time. Big fan of the podcast and look forward to listening to many more.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas.
The Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.